success stories, how SAP customers achieve operational excellence. Some housekeeping notes. This session will be recorded, and the slides and the recording will be posted on our website. Since we have a large crowd on the webinar, everybody is muted. We encourage you to post your questions in the question box, and we will try to address them in the order received. We'll make sure that we have 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to answer all of your questions. My name is Heiko Hecht, and I'm happy to kick off this webinar. My colleague, Clyde Ford, will walk us through most of this webinar. I met Clyde over 10 years ago at Conagra, one of our first Orbi Plus customers in the US. Clyde was responsible for implementing Conagra's TCOE, including SAP Solution Manager, HPALM, SAP Thome, and related tools and processes. Clyde has since then worked in different leadership capacities, and I'm very happy to have him on today's webinar to share his first-hand experience with us. I will kick off the webinar and elaborate on some topics related to IBIS, Orbi Plus, and SAP Solution Manager. I'm working the SAP space since '97, and I've been part of the original development team of Orbi Plus and SAP Solution Manager. Let's take a look at the agenda. As you can see, we have a ton of content to cover. Now, we will not be able to cover all those topics in extensive detail, and you might be missing some important topics here as well. We know that there are many options available to achieve operational excellence. We will present some examples how our customers have achieved that. We also will talk about best practices, realizing that your specific situation might require some deviation and custom solutions. You also might have already started some initiatives. You might not use only SAP systems. You might have some legacy tools in place, but we want to show you an end-to-end view combining different activities and solutions. Please contact us with questions in this webinar or after. We are always happy to help. A few words about IBIS. Our parent organization was founded in 1994 in Würzburg, Germany, about 90 minutes away from SAP's headquarters in Walldorf. From the get-go, IBIS developed tools and methods to support SAP implementation. Professor Thome, our founder, developed the continuous system engineering approach in 1996, and Orbi Plus is one of the resulting tools to support this approach. IBIS American is part of the Thome group, combining German engineering with American problem solving. IBIS America's focus lies on analyzing productive SAP systems for system upgrades, system consolidations, harmonizations, and simplifications. These types of initiatives fit very well into SAP Solution Manager or application lifecycle management related projects, as well as into strategic assessments and testing related services. Now, what is reverse business engineering, or short RBE? We're using X-rays as an analogy. The X-rays were discovered in Würzburg, Germany in 1885. It only took us 110 years, and then IBIS invented RBE for SAP systems and started to develop the first prototype for SAP. We are X-raying SAP systems to find things that are broken or not correctly aligned. Now, how can Orbi Plus help with SAP systems? We can reduce the pain when it comes to upgrades or other SAP initiatives. We can help with your SAP HANA upgrade, migration, with SAP Solution Manager setup, and your SAP testing initiatives. Orbi Plus takes a very detailed look at your system usage and provides processes and process overviews, many key figures which can be used to clean up your system, simplify your system, and helps you to leverage more and newer SAP functionality. Streamlining SAP systems can reduce your total cost of ownership significantly. I put down some examples here of one of our customers. Those are real numbers. Yours might be a little bit higher or lower. We also provide benchmark information if you want to compare yourself to other SAP customers. A lot of the results have a direct impact on operational excellence. 90% of custom programs not used. 72% of custom transactions not used. If they are truly no longer needed, let's not test and upgrade them. 39% of all used transactions are only used by one named user. What happens if that user leaves the company? You'd better have a good documentation, some training materials, and test cases available. Now, we are doing that kind of work since 1998, and we are still developing a lot of new content, and we are updating RB Plus to cover more and more SAP applications. Since the beginning, our goal was to make it easier to utilize SAP technology. Whether SAP will be really simple now with HANA, we shall all see. IBIS is a content partner for SAP. And as you can see, IBIS and SAP have worked in various projects over the last 20 years. Our cooperation really got a boost with RB Plus, and I already mentioned that I was part of the original team who designed SAP Solution Manager. Many of you might have heard of the collaboration between SAP and IBIS in regard to SAP Solution Manager 7.1. Looks like SAP sees great value in RB Plus and IBIS. We certainly hope you do as well. Now, IBIS is not a typical SAP consulting company. We're still doing a lot of research and development for SAP and partners like HP, Atos, and PwC. And we also work with other partners who value our knowledge, methods, and tools. We focus on a few specific areas, but we do them right. Now, this is also acknowledged by Gartner. Second time in a row, IBIS and RB Plus were recognized as the most complete SAP assessment tool. RB Plus covers all areas evaluated in the Gartner study, and we cover all of them substantially. As shown before, you won't find another tool which provides you with such a wealth of actionable information like RB Plus. With this, let me hand the presentation over to Clyde. Clyde will talk about operational excellence and how to achieve it. Clyde, it's all yours.
Thank you, Heiko. Today's topic is one that is near and dear to us all. How do we reduce costs by implementing and achieving operational excellence initiatives? While I prepared for this webinar, I did a little research to see how other professionals define operational excellence. This was one of the better definitions I was able to find. It's the execution of the business strategy consistently and reliably. It's evidenced by results, is defined by lower operational risks and costs, implements on an ongoing basis. It's not a one-time thing. It's sustained and disciplined delivery that leads to excellence. With the theme of today's webinar focused on reducing costs and achieving operational excellence, I thought I'd take a moment to list a few of the inhibitors that I've experienced during my time in the field as both the customer as well as a consultant. I've listed 4 items here: incident management processes and procedures. Who enters the incident? How do we enter the incident? Who reviews it or approves it? Change and transport management processes. Again, if we're using Spro, I can make all kinds of changes in my dev system. It's a manual process. It becomes a mess. Testing. Are we testing the right things? Are we testing too much? Are we not testing enough? And then obviously tools amongst others. This graph depicts some measures that one of my clients thought was important enough to track as they marched down the path towards operational excellence. From the left side in the red area, you see CIO goals, IT strategy, and value metrics. Most of these items seem like common sense objectives, but how many of you went through the process of detailing how to enable zero negative service impacts as a result of change to your productive systems? How to deliver more, faster, from requirements phase all the way through go live and support. How to deliver more capabilities to your business and users without increasing staff or cost. And finally, how to reduce the overall cost of operations. This customer did a great job of defining the what, as well as the KPIs required to identify problem areas that needed to be tracked and measured to ensure the stated CIO goals were being achieved and corrective action implemented as required. This slide demonstrates some measurable statistics from those SAP customers who have implemented many of the operational excellence enablers we're going to talk about today. If you look at the right-hand side, you see some numbers there. Number 2 shows they've experienced a 32.5% increase in operational effectiveness, 23% reduction in cost, and for the top performers, a 54.7% cost savings. So the question is, why is there? Before we answer that question, let's take a look at an SAP slide detailing what I like to call the circle of life for SAP run like a factory. In this, we see a circle called single source of truth that is surrounded by 4 unique group boxes. SAP explains this as one integrated solution for IT management via the use of Solution Manager. This slide walks us through the incident and change management process, major releases, the build, test, and deploy phase, to the proactive monitoring phase. All 4 phases combined make up what SAP calls run SAP like a factory. And the hub to which all these are enabled is SAP Solution Manager. A little later on in the presentation, we'll take a look at how other customers have achieved significant cost reductions via the implementation of some select Solution Manager related capabilities, and how they fit into run SAP like a factory methodology. The next slide details a starting point on how you can begin your journey towards operational excellence. It all starts with the self-assessment. Before you map out a course with Google Maps, you must define your starting point and your ending point. We determine our starting point is to perform self-evaluation. The tool we use is provided to us in SAP Service Marketplace. From the link on the previous page, we are brought to the primary recertification steps and detail page, which walks us through the process, explains the durations and such. To perform a self-assessment, you simply click the CCOE self-assessment link, which will open a spreadsheet that you'll need to complete to get you started on your journey. Once you complete the questionnaire, you'll be provided with the results for each of the areas measured. This is a self-assessment, meaning the results are only as good as the responses you enter the areas being assessed. Upon successful completion of your self-assessment, the next step is to have an independent entity, such as IBIS or another qualified service provider, come in to do a more formalized deep dive assessment, which provides for a more holistic view of your true current state related to people, process, technology, and data. The assessment needs to focus on what you do today, roles and responsibilities, current processes, tools, maturity level, and finally a plan that identifies the gaps in your as-is as well as a proposal that will help you get to your to-be solution. And this is an example of the incident management from a customer that we had worked with. You notice from the right it has the current state, a process that this particular customer executed, the tools, in this example, BMC Remedy and Solution Manager, a maturity level that I've highlighted in red, which is 2. We'll talk about maturity levels here in just a moment. I'm right, the areas in the proposal for improvement. This is just another example using the documentation process, which we'll review very quickly. Again, the roles and responsibilities, who's responsible for the documentation process in your organization? What's the current process that we're using today? What tools are we using for documentation? Maturity level, are we a 1 through a 5? In this instance, this customer is a 1. And then the areas, proposals for improvement, Again, this is what I'm going to identify my action item project. For assessments, SAP uses a maturity scoring matrix that is very similar to the CMMI capability maturity model. This is the same tool IBIS uses for the assessments we perform for our customers as well. SAP's minimum score requirements for operational excellence initiatives is an L3. The objectives of L3 are: you have a defined process in place, you're aware of the issues, you are actively working on said issues, you rule out the process, responsibilities and ownership have been clearly defined, and processes have been digitally documented and shared. Now that you've assessed yourself and followed up by an assessment, the next step is to detail what the findings were by area. This is an example from a customer we have on this screen. In this example, we see multiple tabs, each containing action by the resources assigned. Level requirements, the detailed requirements, a requirements traceability matrix life cycle tracking, followed by each area's unique requirement section for areas assessed. In this example from on the bottom, you have incident management, root cause analysis, and security as starters. Now that we have our gaps identified, understand our main pain points and opportunities, the next step is to define our priorities. Where should we focus our time, efforts, and resources? What are our biggest risk areas causing us the most pain? In this customer example, their number one priority was to reduce costs and risk associated with change in transport management, followed by end-to-end root cause analysis, monitoring, and so on. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Heiko, who will share some options on the foundations of defining blueprint, your true SAP footprint, and solution manager. Heiko?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Clyde. Let's give Clyde a quick break, but only a quick break here. So let's take a look at the foundation of most of what we've discussed so far. Whether you call it business blueprint, solution documentation, or anything else, you need to understand what's going on in your SAP system and have a tool-based and structured documentation of your as-is usage. We'll spend a little bit more time on this slide. I've talked about this topic at Sapphire this year, and I will talk about this topic at the Managing Your SAP Projects event in Las Vegas later in November. Now, in the beginning, SAP provided us with the Business Process Repository, or short BPR. SAP is still updating and maintaining that structure. Implementation content 44 is available already. I took IBIS some time, but 2010 SAP agreed that the BPR is not detailed enough from an analysis perspective. And together with IBIS, SAP developed the reverse business process documentation content, or short RBPD content. Together with SAP Active Global Support and SAP Max Attention, IBIS provided RBPD services and the content to SAP's customer base. Now, it looks like some people at SAP decided not to update the RBPD content end of 2013. It's available with implementation content 38 at this point. And it seems like SAP is pushing the application component-based hierarchy and rapid deployment solutions. Now, those are possibilities to create your business blueprint in SAP Solution Manager. But I find that very interesting, because from an analysis perspective, we are going several steps back with the application component-based hierarchy. RBPD offers better process-related results than the BPR, and the application component-based structure is completely technical and only offers transactions and program usage. This structure is also used by SAP's competitors. And interestingly enough, SAP never liked their approach before. Now, RDS, Rapid Deployment Solutions, they offer very good content. But I don't think they really cover the complete SAP Business Suite at this point. So Before you select any of the options listed on this slide, define your objective and then decide which option is best for you. Now, Gartner thinks RB Plus is the best option for analyzing SAP systems. And who am I to disagree with Gartner, right? Now, kidding aside, there have been, some very good reasons why IBIS developed RB Plus for SAP back in the 90s and RBPD a few years back. We're still updating the content for SAP Solution Manager like we did since 2005, and it's our customers and the lessons learned which keep us going. One of the lessons learned at our customer Goodyear was that the creation of technical bill of materials, or short T-BOMs, is not completely supported with SAP's BPR or the RPPD content. T-BOMs are needed for impact analysis with SAP Solution Manager, and SAP offers organizational units, master data, and business processes as categories within SAP Solution Manager, and you only can create T-BOMs for business processes. So that's something we fixed with the IBIS content for Solution Manager. Now, technical structures also don't really help us with integration tests, and our custom transactions and programs are not really reflected in any reference model, but we absolutely need them in our as-is documentation for testing and validation purposes. For most customers, it probably makes sense not to reinvent the wheel and to create a custom structure. Documenting your SAP usage is one of the areas IBIS specifically supports, and as I said before, we don't do everything, but what we do right. With that, I will hand things back over to Clyde.
Thank you, Heiko. This is a customer example in the business software and services industry that's based in Redmond, Washington. This customer took advantage of the benefits provided with RBE Plus to document their processes with Solution Manager, test business processes and associated time in Solution Manager, then proactively enable monitoring of the business processes, systems, and interfaces as defined in Solution Manager. This is a customer example in the consumer goods industry that is based in Omaha, Nebraska. This happens to be the very first company in North America to achieve SAP's Advanced Customer Center of Expertise certification. The name of this company, ConAgra Foods, which is where I grew up in SAP. I was responsible for implementing and enabling the testing center of excellence that ended up being the poster child for both SAP and HP. I probably did at least one customer demo for SAP or HP each and every week. I own Solution Manager, testing, process, and governance-related reporting for our teams. If you know anything about the ConAgra story, you'll know that they had a 3-year roadmap where 1 to 2 new plants were going live each and every month. We still maintain quarterly releases and our normal break-fix schedule, which was multiple times a week. One of the ways ConAgra was able to be so successful with their aggressive 3-year plan was by having their blueprint in Solution Manager. ConAgra leveraged the RBE Plus services from IBIS to define actual usage of SAP, developed a template project of standard content, and then reused approximately 70% of that content from that template project for each of the plants being rolled out via implementation projects. A risk-based testing approach was also enabled, i.e. the main test focus was on the 30%-ish number that was unique for each of the rollouts that wasn't part of the template. A solid regression strategy was employed to make sure that the processes defined as part of the template were automated and executed as changes were being introduced into our production environment. This is a customer example in the personal products industry that is based in Cincinnati, Ohio. This customer leveraged RBE Plus to define system and usage of their SAP systems. Once the blueprint was defined in Solution Manager, they were able to leverage additional capabilities available to them, in this instance, SAP's Clone Finder for custom code. The customer reviewed other tools such as Panaya and IntelliCore, which are both great tools. An option to them with their custom code and landscape challenges. In the end, the capabilities available in Solution Manager won out and was selected. In large part, many of the customers we work with use a SharePoint type of solution for documentation management. While at ConAgra, a choice was made to move away from our use of SharePoint called Stellent to use Solution Manager. We at IBIS have since worked with many other customers to help them simplify their documentation strategy as well. While with ConAgra, I created a cheat sheet, which is what you're looking at here, for the teams to hang in their cubes that showed Solution Manager structure mode, where in the structure were we going to store our documentation. The type of documentation, it's a workflow, it's a SOP, it's a BPP, it's a requirement document. The document name, whether it was required or optional, the phase of the project that that document needed to be developed, which tab in Solution Manager the document needed to live in, and then obviously some naming conventions. We added comments that were used to help our users understand any questions that they may have, answer questions they may have, et cetera, et cetera. From a document governance perspective, we were able to create a customized red, yellow, blue, green report that provided a summary view of all documents in process for a given project. Again, these numbers were pulled directly from Solution Manager in a matter less than a minute. This is the same type of view of the previous slide, but is broken down by individual teams. This information provided our project managers and executive leadership with a weekly view for project-related work. An added benefit was an increase in the level of accountability gains by simply moving our documentation out of our Stellent solution into SAP Solution Manager. Many of the customers we engage with have their own incident management solution, be it homegrown, HP, BMC, ServiceNow, and others. For the most part, these tools are extremely efficient, easy to use, require minimal customization, and most importantly, get the job done for both SAP and non-SAP issue tracking alike. In the next few slides, I want to demonstrate some options available to you in both the incident and change management process. This picture provides a high-level overview of how you can integrate your existing incident solution with SAP Solution Manager. For most customers, the incident and change management process looks something like this. A ticket is created in your incident solution, whether it be Remedy, ServiceNow, or whatever. Once approved, work occurs in my dev systems and tested in my QA systems. Changes and transport information captured in a spreadsheet where basis or an equipment resource reviews the spreadsheet manually. The change review board approves changes which are then moved to production. This process is manual, labor-intensive, and completed in a standalone steps. Due to the non-integrated way of executing this process, the level of risk is elevated higher than it needs to be. Part of our effort to increase operational efficiency, reduce risk, and total cost of ownership, the recommended approach for incident change management is to either use SAP Service Desk for your incident management process, enterprise-wide, or integrate your current solution with SAP Service Desk for all SAP-centric instances. The goal is to have a more holistic, low-risk, fully approach versus the normal multiple standalone tools and processes that we saw on the previous page, which are error-prone and costly. In this view, the change is entered into your incident solution, then assigned to SAP's ITSM once it is defined as an SAP incident. Some field mapping is required if you're using a ServiceNow or Remedy, as an example. From here, the workflow change process is enabled. Assigned and approved changes move from dev to queue to the CRB for final approvals before being released to production, all automated. Note, SAP ITSM and change management works via a customized workflow. Unless an incident is assigned to me, I'm not able to make any type of change into our dev system. The Lone Ranger approach of doing work goes away. The uncommunicated changes that slipped into production causing unplanned outages goes away. All the work you deal with today goes away. The majority of the risk associated with incident and change management goes away. However, reporting of KPIs continues as it does today. Whether you use standard out-of-the-box SAP or integrate with your incident solution today, again, the goal is to move towards a fully integrated solution, and SAP's recommended approach is via ITSM Charm. This is a slide I pulled together at the request of a customer who owned IBIS development manager who was championing the implementation of various ALM solution manager capabilities here in Omaha. He needed something quick and easy he could share with his peers to help them understand how they could take advantage of the integration of ServiceNow with ITSM Charm and how this could feed the testing process. They had just implemented the HP suite of tools along with SAP Towel. We pulled together about 15 slides or so, detailing the step-by-step processes, the workflows associated with implementation. However, it was this slide that helped him explain the end-to-end process with his peers and other decision makers. From this picture, the whole process begins with an incident, starting from left to right. The incident is created in ServiceNow, and it is deemed to be SAP. Workflow allows for transition of data to the service desk, which is where we begin. Once the incident has been qualified, an RFC or request for change can be created by the click of a button from the incident. This is the integration piece into SAP Charm. A change document can be created by the click of a button from the RFC. This initiates the build, test, implementation process. Once the change work is completed and unit testing is verified, the BPCA analysis for said changes can be initiated directly from within Charm. Once the analysis file has been generated, you may choose to have an automatic email created that is sent over to your test manager or your test lead for action. Once that test manager locates the analysis file, they'll execute the analysis feature within SAP Towel. This is one of the most powerful features related to testing in SAP. Once executed from Towel, a new tab displays all tests that are and or may be corrupted due to changes identified from the analysis run. I no longer have to take the shotgun approach and test everything. I can now focus on the areas that I know for sure have been impacted due to some type of change event. The test manager selects the repair function from Towel and updates all impacted components, then sends the updated components back to HPALM, which is on the far right. The test manager or lead logs into ALM to verify that the component library and impacted components have been updated. It's their job to parameterize those components, to reconsolidate those components, to test those changes, and then send the results back to SAP Charm, which completes that circle and closes the loop. Sorry, one more. This is a customer example in the consumer food company industry that is based in Luxembourg, Germany. This customer detailed their business processes in Solution Manager. They were able to reduce the cost of testing by 40%. They were able to automate via the use of ECAT technology. They achieved near 100% requirements traceability, and they did it all without the extra spend of purchasing tools like HP, Worksoft, IBM, and so forth. They simply used the native testing solution available to them in Solution Manager. This Canadian utilities customer was challenged with a variety of complex systems, multiple concurrent projects, manual testing, and not enough resources or time to deliver quality products for their end users in a timely manner. This customer did things a little in reverse to what we've seen from other customer stories so far. They started their journey with testing before they jumped back into Solution Manager, which they eventually did by enlisting IBIS to help them develop their blueprint Solution Manager. Let's jump to the next page to see some results. Again, there are many low-cost opportunities available to you, organization that can be leveraged to help you achieve your operational excellence. But you can see from here that this customer was able to leverage Solution Manager and the HP and PAL solution to reduce overall testing. As an example here, in new oil field services, what normally took them 2 days to execute manually was reduced to 32 minutes. For the business processes, all of these business processes were executed by individual resources in those verticals. With the use of automation, this testing was completed by one person who pushed a button at night, came back the next morning, picked up the logs, reviewed the logs with each of the individual teams, and called it good. We just reviewed a couple different options along with a couple related customer success stories. The Solution Manager 710 SP11, you now have access to another test offering from SAP called Scope and Effort Analyzer. This is both a development and test solution. Scope and Effort Analyzer is a tool within Solution Manager that helps you move away from a guess to a more fact-based estimate on what it will take for you to do an upgrade, say from EHP 5 to EHP 7. This is a live example of a customer that we've helped implement Scope and Effort Analyzer with earlier this year. This slide shows the estimated effort in days for development, unit, and regression tasks for a planned SAP upgrade, which shows in the upper left-hand side as EHP 7 for SAP ERP 6.0. This slide shows the number of areas impacted by the upgrade change from EHP 5 to EHP 7, arranged by process areas, i.e. PA, I, AP, FN, and so on. One last customer story I want to share with you before we open things up for questions. This customer was able to leverage Solution Manager's data volume management functionality and reduce their database size by roughly 58%. Again, there are many low-cost opportunities available to you and your organization that can be leveraged to help you achieve your goal of operational excellence. We at IBIS would appreciate the opportunity to be that trusted partner you can lean on to help you on your journey to reducing costs by achieving operational excellence. With that, I'll turn it back over to Heiko.
Super, excellent job, Clyde. Thank you very much. So we will see, if we have any questions. You will find our contact information on this slide, and we also put another slide for the upcoming events after this slide. Our next webinar will be November 11th, and we will talk about test management in more detail there. So let me take a look at the questions. Will the slide deck be available to participants? Yes, the slide deck will be made available on our website. We will send out emails after the webinar, and we will also show you the, present the recording of this webinar. Okay, next question. What would be a good starting point to achieve operational excellence? The assessment? Yes, I think that's correct. Start with the assessment and then let it validate by a trusted partner. Clyde, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I see one that says the comparison that Clyde just presented, save test time, include the effort to develop the TAL scripts and maintain them, or just the actual one-time run. So the effort was in building out the tasks. And again, whether the user, in this instance, I was there, the user had spreadsheets that we were able to import into HP ALM. They were fairly detailed, had screenshots and whatnot. So my team was able to take those inputs into HP walk through, make sure that they were good, get buy-off from the process team, and then we did the automation. But to your question, was this the run? Did it include the test build out as well as execution, or just the execution? This was just the execution. And from again, one of the things that wasn't said, and this was presented at Sapphire for this customer. The other thing that was not stated was, instead of having all of these individual team leads or teams that are responsible for testing, executing tests, this really was one person. Once we got it defined and we got things automated from a regression perspective, it really was one person who was able to execute the task, go home, come back the next day, review the results with the team leads. And really the only thing that was relevant from a review was anything that failed.
Okay, thanks.
And then go ahead, Heiko.
Yep. So feel free to put some questions in the question box. You can also try to use the chat box, but the question box is probably the better one. I thought RB Plus was replaced by SAP Solution Manager / RBPD. Yeah, I have seen some of those misleading posts as well, but that is absolutely not correct. There is still, a need for RB Plus. We're still maintaining it, and SAP even positions RB Plus as supplementary services to the SAP Max Attention customers. So, RB Plus can be integrated into Solution Manager. And yes, IBIS developed content for Solution Manager for RBPD, but it's really, different tools, and they supplement each other.
Here's a question. Is there a recommended option when it comes to building your blueprint as it relates to achieving operational excellence? You want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. I briefly talked about it at the blueprint overview slide. The problem I see is that, the BPR is transaction and really only transaction evaluated. Application component hierarchy is very technical. RBPD is outdated because, it was, the maintenance was stopped like 2 years ago. So, from my perspective, take a look at the IBIS content, because we still, continued to update that content. We've learned a lot of lessons out of our customer projects. So we basically use the BPR as a starting point, and modeled it more in a process-oriented fashion. Plus, we also support impact analysis. Because we saw at Goodyear, that it didn't work with the RBPD content.
And then here's a question. It's in relationship to my time at ConAgra Foods and how I was able to state we were able to reduce plant rollouts by 70%. That's a great question. So going back to ConAgra for a second, again, my responsibility was the Testing Center of Excellence. One of the things that we were implementing, or we implemented everything SAP, so we were on the bleeding edge for everything SAP. One of the things that we decided was important for us to do was to define what we were doing, especially with all of those rollouts. Again, we had a 3-year plan. We were doing 1 to 2 new plants each month. We were still doing the releases of SAP. We were still doing our normal break-fix maintenance. What we did is again, Heiko alluded to this earlier, we were one of the first companies in North America to leverage IBIS America to help us build out our blueprint. What we identified was a lot of stuff, and Heiko had a slide that kind of showed some numbers, a lot of stuff that we were maintaining that we weren't using. We had 25,000 plus test cases for all the different applications that we were responsible for. Most of those were outdated and of no value to us. So from a plant rollout perspective, what we were able to do is, via a workshop, define what our end-to-ends were, record to report, MRP to pay, RM to PR, etc. in SAP Solution Manager. And everything that we said that was standard as a team, these are going to be standard across all of our rollouts, was defined in our template project. As we began to roll out those implementation, plants, we would build an implementation project, Solution Manager, and pull content from that template, that 70% that was standard across all the rollouts, and put that content into Solution Manager as a starting point for our teams. What that meant for the teams is that they needed to focus on that 30%-ish number that was unique for each rollout and build that out. That also made, from a testing perspective, our highest risk areas for testing was that 30%-ish number that was unique for each of those plants that weren't part of our template. So that was a good question.
Excellent, super. Now, another question here. Does it make sense for smaller enterprises to invest in SAP Solution Manager and to achieve operational excellence? Clyde, you want to talk about that?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you say that again, please?
Does it make sense for smaller enterprises to invest in SAP Solution Manager and to achieve operational excellence?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And again, working with the number of customers that we worked with, whether they're large or small, it really doesn't matter the size of the company. Here's kind of how I like to explain it to, say, a smaller company. Do you still have a requirements phase? And the answer is yes. We still have to write requirements, define requirements, review the requirements with the business and our partners, get sign off before we go do configuration and development type activities and training and testing and whatnot. The benefit of doing this stuff within Solution Manager is it's the visibility and accountability. I can give an example, Heiko, of a company that I worked with in Des Moines who was implementing a project or a plant in Brazil. So this development manager in Des Moines had never not had control of the development phase for any of their projects for this particular company. In Brazil, if you understand the rules in Brazil, they had to leverage people from Brazil to do that development work, which meant he didn't have the control that he was used to with the other plants and other rollouts for him. So by putting all the work in the documentation in Solution Manager, it didn't really matter where the work was being completed, whether it was in Brazil or in Des Moines, Iowa, or Omaha, Nebraska. All the work activities, all the work products, all the deliverables were being managed directly out of Solution Manager. So from an accountability and a visibility perspective, and just for a confidence perspective, again, because we're a global entity as far as where we're doing our work, a lot of the work's being done in the Philippines or it's being done in India or China. We need to have visibility to that work product that's being completed, and the way that we can do that, again, regardless of the size of the implementation, is through Solution Manager. And again, some of the other benefits is if we want to do testing. So we're testing break fixes, we're testing the support packs, we're doing a new rollout, whatever that may be. If we define our processes in Solution Manager, we link that Solution Manager those processes to our testing solution, whatever that testing solution is, whether it's manual or automated. We're reducing the amount of risk. We're testing the right things. We're able to go back to our business partner and say with certainty that the requirements that you identified, that you signed off on, that we've implemented, have 100% been executed, and here's the results. And then from a monitoring perspective, obviously we have processes in Solution Manager. We roll those changes into production. We can now set up our monitors to monitor those things that are important to us as a company. So again, whether you're a small company, mid-size, or large, there's a lot of advantages to using Solution Manager for operational excellence opportunities.
Sounds great, Clyde. Yeah, and I mean, I can confirm that, we've worked definitely, with some larger customers from an IBIS perspective. And Solution Manager is not really a all or nothing, question. You can use, bits and pieces, and then, benefit of those.
And I think one of the other, go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the other things too that I hear with customers that I work with is by leveraging Solution Manager, I think that the information is outdated. It may have been true in the past, but we're having a lot of extra rework or overhead to my projects. And again, it goes back to, do you need to do requirements? And again, if I go to the Niagara story, we had many different document types that we used for requirements. We had, some people did it in Excel, some people did it in Word. It was stored in Stellent. There was from my drive, your drive, the shared drive. We had things all over the place. What we were able to do is to simplify our document strategy, especially when I talked through the requirements phase. Specifically, if I had a scenario that was called warehouse management cross-docking, the way we simplified it is we said there's 3 document types allowed to be stored in the general documentation tab in Solution Manager. All 3 document types are going to be called cross-docking. How we differentiated the document types was, one was the Word document that IT and the business reviewed and signed off. That was a multi-page Word document. One was a PowerPoint, which consisted of 1 to 3 slides, which was more for an executive review. And then the third one was a Visio diagram, which showed the workflow and how we were going to actually execute the process. So for every business process, we had 3 document types, all documents named after the business process. Now, if you take that forward, we did something similar for configuration and our write-ups and things of that nature as well, as far as our training as well. So you take that forward. Now, from an onboarding perspective, the amount of time that we're able to save just onboarding new employees or onboarding consultants or moving one person from one team to the other, the process was very simple. We were able to get people up and running within a day. From a maintenance perspective, once we went live, the support team, they didn't have to go hunting and pecking every place. And if you go to a SharePoint drive today, it's impossible sometimes to find requirements or configuration rational guides or my tech specs or functional specs. You got things all over the place. By using Solution Manager from a documentation solution, we were able to simplify that process as well for our support team. So it wasn't just for the teams doing the work and configuring and developing and training and testing, but it was also for our support people as well. So a lot of advantages from more work. We were simply storing the work in a central location, a single source of truth, which was Solution Manager.
Great, yeah, sounds good. Now, next question, do we have to get certified to achieve operational excellence? And I guess I will take a step at that. No, you don't need to get certified to achieve operational excellence. But if you want to get certified, that's something only SAP can do. We can help you there, with the assessments and things like that. But certification is not a prerequisite to achieve operational excellence. You can use SAP Solution Manager and/or other tools. I think it makes sense to go through that assessment, identify some of your pain points, and then you can start improving your SAP usage and the maintenance of it. Now here I have 2 questions which are a little bit related. Can we achieve operational excellence without using SAP Solution Manager? And you made a lot of reference to Solution Manager. What if we are not using Solution Manager? What would you recommend as some other type of operational excellence opportunities we could pursue? Clyde, you want to take this one?
Sure. So again, I'll go back to another Canadian company that I worked with that was actually non-SAP. They're an Oracle shop. It's a utilities company in Saskatchewan. The things that we looked at with them from an operational excellence enabler was, again, we went back to the requirements phase and helping them understand, basically enabling the business to understand how to ask for and define good requirements, working with the business, IT, to help them understand how to pull the requirements from the business. So there's a documentation strategy. Once we have our documentation, our requirements defined, and what are some of the things that are important to us from a documentation perspective to help in that space from operational excellence? Did we define business requirements? Did we find response requirements, performance requirements? What type of content is in that requirements document? Once we have that, now we can go over to test management. Again, are we testing against the requirements as defined by the business to meet the business need? There are many opportunities in the testing space. From a monitoring space, again, we're not just monitoring SAP systems and interfaces. There are obviously different tools out there that we can leverage from a monitoring perspective to do more proactive versus reactive monitoring. So there are many different things that we can look at from whether I'm using Solution Manager or not, how we define that, how we can best work with you to identify what those opportunities are, is going to be with us coming in and doing that assessment. Assessment's the framework from which we start with, and then we work with you to identify those opportunities, and then we go from there.
Sounds good, Clyde. So, before, people are starting to leave, thank you very much for attending this webinar. We hope it was beneficial for you. Feel free to contact us with additional questions. We are here to help. As I said, we will post the slides and a recording on our website, and we will reach out to you as soon as it is available. Now, Clyde, do you see any more questions on your screen?
Let me look, see if there's any more. Let's see, let's do a great session. Let's do this for our reps in North America. No, I don't have any other questions, Michael. That was it. Just
Sounds great. Okay, then thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and hope to see you at SAP TechEd or the Managing Your SAP Projects event in Las Vegas in November. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.